Hi, everybody. You're listening to the Red Podcast.
This is episode number 32. We're talking about how to stand out from the crowd. There's more competition than ever. If you want to succeed in business, you absolutely have to stand out. We've got some great stories of businesses that are doing that and 4 action steps that you can take today to make yourself stand out from your competition. That's next on this episode of the Red Podcast.
This is the Red Podcast. Real entrepreneur development. Make more money, work less, and live a life of freedom. No BS advice that really works. Here's your hosts, David Hooper and Laurel Staples.
Laurel, you know how we usually start out Red Podcast with a personal story, some witty banter?
Yeah, that's like the best part.
We're not doing that.
Oh.
Not today. The witty stories, the banter, the personality, it's baked in to this episode.
We just got too much to talk about today.
We do. This is the Red Podcast. Red stands for Real Entrepreneur Development. Laurel and I, we've been at this for quite some time. We've had the highs, we've had the lows, we've had the gooey middle.
I like the gooey middle. Yeah, well, Red is for business owners who are trying to spread a message. That's going to be your coaches, speakers, authors, bloggers, podcasters, anyone who has a message that they're trying to get out there. And they want the strategies, they want the know-how to make a 6-figure income while doing it. That's what it's all about.
We're taking you beyond the trends. We're taking you beyond the tricks. This is where the 4-hour work week really exists, but it's a whole lot different than you may have read in the book. So if you're looking to get real, this is it, Real Entrepreneur Development. This episode brought to you by Mic Tech Audio. They are makers of the Procast SST. This thing is fantastic. A lot of people are looking to get into podcasting, and if you would like to start a podcast, it's a great piece of equipment. It is a mixer. It's the stand that holds the mic where it needs to go, and it's a great high-quality broadcast mic all-in-one package. You have one cord. You plug it into your computer. You can use free software like Audacity, which is what we record on, and you're good to go. You've seen it, Laurel. What do you think?
It's good because it's all in one. That's just brilliant. I'm just going to say that because when you're trying to get everything together, when you're trying to start a podcast, because I know I did that about 2 years ago, and you need help, and they kind of just put it all in one package for you, which I love.
So many people make it so complicated. They've got mixers, they've got stands. Do you have the right stand? Do you have the right windscreen? Do you even need a mixer? Well, these guys fixed it for you. It's cheap too. It retails for $2.99, shipped to your door. The Procast SST by Mic Tech Audio. Check it out online. There's some great reviews on YouTube if you want to see how it works.
So thanks to them for being our sponsor today. And what are we talking about today? Give us like the synopsis of what's about to happen here.
Well, we're going to talk about how to stand out in the crowd. And I've got a story for you. This is where we're going to bake in the stories.
Bake in that story. What's your story?
So I was in Toronto, Ontario, Canada. You just got back from there.
I am a big fan of that city.
Great city, and I had a funny experience there. I was walking through a city park right in the middle of downtown Toronto. Looked up in a tree, just enjoying the day, and I saw a black squirrel.
Dun, dun, dun.
Dun, dun, dun. Where I am, gray squirrels. And I had never seen a black squirrel. I thought this was some kind of freak of nature. I thought it was like an albino squirrel, but like whatever the opposite of albino is.
Black.
So as people were coming by, I was like, hey, look at this. It's a squirrel. And everybody looked at me like I was completely nuts. And I've got a good friend of mine up there, project manager that I've worked with for a long, long time. And I mentioned it to her, and she's like, yeah, all the squirrels are black here. So I think it was a really funny moment in how, one, we can look at things from other industries. You talk about sticking out and how to stand out from the crowd. We can look at things in other industries that seem common, bring them over to our industry where it's uncommon, but also that what is normal to you, just in general, and maybe you're the normal person. There's a saying that says, experts arrive with a suitcase. If you take something elsewhere, it might work a whole lot better because of regional differences and just because you're a little bit different. It's a great way to stand out. So that's my black squirrel story. It's a lot like being a country musician in Nashville. They are everywhere. But if you're doing country music and you go somewhere else and say you're from Nashville, you can make 2-3 times the money just by saying that, even though you're doing the same thing. So think about that. Any kind of business you're in, if you want to stand out, remember, experts arrive with a suitcase.
I kind of think of your story there because I had a similar experience. I was hiking at Radnor Lake, which is a really nice natural area in Nashville, and I ran across a red squirrel. And I was like, oh my God, it's a red squirrel. And I've hundreds of thousands of squirrels in this town, the gray squirrels, and I see a red squirrel and I have the same reaction that you have. And I think the thing that I take from your story, David, is like, you don't have to be that much different to stand out. Like a black squirrel is a shade different than a gray squirrel. A red squirrel is a different shade different than a gray squirrel. And it pops and it stands out. You know, if you're a squirrel, you don't have to strive to be a bobcat or an elephant or something like that. You just have to be a shade different to stand out from all the noise out there.
There's so many great examples of that. One of them would be the Olympics. Think about the timing of the first runner, the guy who gets the gold medal, compared to the last, just a few seconds at most. And from the first to the second to the third, maybe hundredths of a second. It doesn't take that much when you're number one, but a little bit is going to go a long way. And then the money, of course, obviously, the fame, the recognition, a ton of difference. A lot of ways we can use this story, but I like what you're saying, that shade, just a shade different, will make you stand out.
Because I feel like the problem that many people in this industry are facing, David, is that you want to open a business, you want to spread your message, and you go online and you find that there are thousands of other people trying to spread the same exact message. And that's where you kind of run into a block, because if you just end up doing exactly what they do and following all their trends, you're just going to be that gray squirrel. And that's what you don't want to be. And when you're online and when you have an online presence, you're just like, people can just have one click and they're off your website and you never get any money from them and they're never going to be a fan of yours. So you do have to show them in that one instance or in that one meeting you have with them that you are that quote unquote black squirrel or red squirrel.
Earl Nightingale has a great quote about how to accumulate wealth. And this brings me to another point that we need to talk about, which is what I call they zig, you zag. And Earl Nightingale said, you can make a lot of money by doing the opposite of what everyone else is doing. And why is that? Because everyone else is broke. So if you don't want to be broke, do the opposite of them. And I think that we can do that when it comes to standing out. I was calling, and I don't even remember what it was. I think I had a problem with my mobile phone. Had to call Sprint, which is the provider that I use. And I got into this phone tree thing. And you've been there, I'm sure, Laurel.
Oh, yeah.
Where press 1 for this, press 2 for this. What's your account number? And a very simple thing they could do. And I have this. Actually, I've got a credit card. And part of the way they stand out is they say, we're going to have a live person answer the phone. Something simple like that. A live person, even if it's somebody who's going to transfer me to the correct department, is a huge difference for a lot of people. Because what ended up happening with me with that phone tree, I pressed 1 and then it didn't understand what I was trying to press. Mm-hmm. And then asked me again and asked me again. Little bitty thing like that would have changed my experience, and I would have probably enjoyed actually talking to somebody.
That's the thing, is it's still customer support. As in, the squirrel is still a squirrel, but it's slightly different. They're doing something slightly different that makes a huge impact and makes people stop and go, oh my God, I just had a really great experience.
So let's talk about some other ways that people can zig when everyone else is zagging. One of the ways you can do it, and we've seen it happening recently with podcasting and also YouTube videos, is going high budget. Used to be that YouTube was just a bunch of flip cams. Remember those flip phones?
Oh, yeah. It had like the worst quality ever.
The worst quality. And then, of course, iPhone started stepping up their game when it came to high quality video. You can put a mic on it for high quality audio. If they're going low budget, you go high budget. And at the same time, if they're going to go high budget, you go low budget. So whatever they're doing, you do something different just so you don't get lumped in with all those gray squirrels. You become the black squirrels. Here's another one. When I lived in Columbus, Ohio, I was renting a place. And I'd rented several places, probably 5 or 6 places before that. This guy didn't have a lease. And I said, what? You don't have a lease? He said, look, if you don't want to be here, I don't want you here. And I've never had an issue with it. And I've always remembered that guy because I think that it's a great way to get good people, to get the people that you want, and it's a great way to be memorable. I was super loyal to that guy because he took a chance on me. So yeah, I'm going to trust you. And I actually probably behaved better in that place than I would have. The reason I'd had 6 or 7 places before that was because I broke every lease. But I didn't break his.
Well, you didn't have one to break.
No, well, here's what it did. It kept me on my best behavior because this guy could kick me out at any time. It also kept him on his best behavior because I could leave and he was going to miss a month or 2 while he looked for somebody else. They zig, you zag. It differentiates everything, but it also makes you better and it makes your customers better in this case.
I think you do, when you're trying to figure out how to zag when other people are zigging, you do have to stay in alignment with your brand and who you are and what you want to be doing. So for instance, if everyone's going low budget on their videos or podcasts and you go high budget, but you're doing something that doesn't, really connect with the high budget videos or anything like that, you got to make sure it's just congruent with your brand and your customer service and the value that you're providing to your customers. So just make sure it's all in alignment when you make a choice one way or another.
I completely agree. I think the issue when it comes to they zig, you zag is that a lot of people, the people that we talked about, the people that Red Podcast is for, bloggers, authors, podcasters, it's just kind of like the blind following the blind. They don't really question anything. Hey, everybody else is offering a guarantee, so therefore I need to offer a guarantee. Or no one else has a guarantee, so I don't need to do that. I think it just gets you thinking in a different way, and it kind of forces you to think about why you want to do that stuff. And in that case, you are going to come up with things that are better in alignment for you. So you don't have to necessarily do the opposite, but just question everything. And
research what other people are doing. I mean, that's where the first step is you have to know what your competition is doing. You have to know what's out there and start learning what is working for these people, what's not working for these people. How can you be different? It starts with knowing what's going on right now. One of my favorite examples, David, and you've played this game, is the game Cards Against Humanity. We played that a couple months ago.
I wrote something on bigboldimpact.com about Cards Against Humanity. I was so impressed with it.
I put it in my book as well because explain the game real quick and then I'll say what's so cool about it.
If you've ever played a game called Apples to Apples, you kind of get Cards Against Humanity, except Cards Against Humanity, the one that we played, and this is what got my attention. So we had another couple come over, a couple couples come over, and one of them brought Cards Against Humanity, and it was printed out at like Kinko's. And the pieces, just a black and white piece of paper that she had chopped up. So it was like an 8.5 by 11, just a standard size sheet that were chopped up into these little bitty cards. So it was way, way low budget. And beyond that, it was extremely vulgar. It was it was like beyond vulgar.
You don't play it with your grandmother.
No, absolutely not. I mean, I've been on the road with musicians. I've seen a lot. I've heard a lot. I've done a lot. And even I was worried I was going to get struck by lightning. So where you've got a clean game, like Apples to Apples that your grandmother would love, you have just the opposite of that and it probably beyond to the 10th power of something that would make even your hardcore musician, military guy, biker blush just a little bit.
Well, they are just the epitome of zig versus zagging. Is they do everything the opposite of any other game I've ever seen. And for instance, you said that our friend who came over, she brought a printed out copy, and that I believe they just give away for free the cards in PDF format on their website. So you can download it, print it out at Kinko's, and just cut it up. Like, that's available to you.